Are Baylor and Arizona State actually in a make or break game in week 4 of the season?
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello there, Bears fans. Welcome to another episode of Locked On Baylor, brought to you by Mazda and part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I'm your host, Cam Stuart. Joining me, he's got such good style, they call him Pete Sousa. From inside the 12 and ESPN, we're going to take a look a little bit around the Big 12 and why this might be a make or break game for Baylor and Arizona State and who Pete got in this one. He's got the notes, and now we've got him. It's all coming up on this episode of Locked On Baylor. Pete.
What up?
Big one. A team that you have defended quite a bit, Arizona State.
Yeah.
You were defending them a lot last year before anyone was really buying the Arizona State stock.
Yeah.
And then this summer, I think you and I were both on the same page of like, nobody's picking Arizona State to win the league. You know, they were picking them to be around there, but I'm like, this is the defending champs. They bring a lot back outside of Cam Skattebo. And now with some injuries and not having Cam Skattebo there is certainly a bit of exposure there for Arizona State. So as you look at this, Baylor 2.5-point favorites at home. Both these teams fed a little up and a little bit down so far this season. Do you think that's a good line, Baylor 2.5 at home?
I do. I think it's perfect. And those guys, they don't miss much, right? And the thing about Cam Skattebo, it's like that reminds me of something my father used to say, like, outside of that, how was the play, Mrs. Lincoln? Like,
I believe around my house it was, other than that, Mrs. Kennedy, how was Dallas? Yeah. I got detention for saying that to a teacher in middle school. Can you believe that?
Well, because it's you, I can believe it. Detention was probably a bit of an overreach by them, but what can you do?
Well, she said, just real quick, she said all the greatest people have their birthdays in April. And I said, well, there was one dictator, Germany. He had his birthday was in April. She said, well, other than that. And I said, well, other than that, Miss Kennedy, how was Dallas? And I got a detention. So that just to tie that in a bow. Go ahead, Pete.
What grade were you in?
8th.
Okay. That's
sassy.
Okay.
Yeah. I knew better than most of my teachers. I still believe that. Yeah.
But Skattebo's huge. Him not being there is huge for that team. It's a huge loss. And I was sort of hung up on, okay, they got 9 dudes coming back on defense. And I'm certainly that's helped. And that loss to Mississippi State, was it unforgivable? No. I mean, in November, if Mississippi State is okay, that's not a bad loss, really. But it doesn't look good now. And Sam Leavitt has been, at times, suspect.
Shaky.
Yeah. And I think that was, again, it's not Sam Leavitt's fault, but I thought people were way overselling, like, who he is, his ceiling. And, he's a real good quarterback. But let's keep it right there.
Is he closer? So he made the All Big 12 team over Sawyer last year, infamously. And I'm going to compare him to someone who this is not derogatory. Is he closer to, is Sam Leavitt closer to Sawyer Robertson as a quarterback, or is he closer to Rocco Becht?
He's closer to Rocco Becht.
Yeah, which is fine. Like, that's not trying to put the kid down. But like, when you see Sawyer, you see a ton of arm talent. You see a guy who can keep his team in a game when their defense is awful. Yeah. And Rocco, if he had a defense like Baylor's, I don't know that Iowa State would be in the Big 12 picture. I just don't. And I think that's probably where Sam Leavitt falls in here. And so now you got a situation where, Sawyer can really elevate the talent around him. Sam Leavitt, jury's still out. You don't have Skattebo. And you have one receiver playing this weekend who has over 100 yards this year in 3 games. That's crazy. Jordan Tyson's a heck of a receiver, but that's all he's got out there. There's big question marks around that running back room. That could kind of change the way we look at Arizona State.
Yeah, for sure. But the one problem, it was cool because I got a chance to talk to Danny White this week. He played quarterback at Arizona State, obviously legendary Cowboy, and he mentioned to me 2 things. One, what I thought was cool, and this is a tip of the cap to Kenny Dillingham, that he meets with Danny White every Sunday to kind of go over the next team's game plan and what Danny White thinks about it. That's just Kenny Dillingham being smart and getting it. He may meet with Danny White for 25 minutes. I have no idea. But it certainly shows a little cohesion there between old school, new school. But one of the things Danny White told me, which was a great point, is that Sam Levitt has been too quick to run this year. Everybody's like, oh my God, have you seen Sam Levitt run? Have you seen? But Danny's like, yo, their passing game hasn't developed at all this year because he hasn't really stayed in the pocket and he's quick to abandon it. Now, let's go to Baylor. We saw Jackson Arnold carve this team up running the football. I have to believe that that's part of the blueprint for Arizona State because they got a guy who can run and throw. So this is a dangerous situation for Baylor once again. And it could be a real frustrating one for fans because I know guys like you have a low threshold for BS. And if you see Dave Aranda, our wizard defensively, now here in game 4, is it game 4 or game 5?
Game 4, yep.
Game 4, struggle to contain another mobile quarterback, that could be a real issue.
That's I said that on the show yesterday too. It's a great point of like mainly because I said it too. But you had 3 weeks ago, like exactly kind of what Arizona State has. You know what I mean? Yeah. Auburn had different guys you had to pay attention to. They have more skill at the skill positions than Arizona State has, but
probably bigger in the trenches.
And that too. Yep. But in terms of like what the quarterback's doing, Jackson Arnold threw for 100 yards in that game.
Yeah.
And they dropped 38 on you. Like if you can't think of a way to scheme that up and stop him, the same kind of quarterback 3 weeks later, that's really, really bad. So we've got them, or FanDuel has them as 2.5-point favorites. You agree with that. Why does Baylor win this game?
Well, Baylor wins this game because of Sawyer Robertson. And Sawyer has to be great. And it's unfortunate for him, or maybe it's not, but he kind of has to be great every week for Baylor to have a shot from here on out. And yeah, I guess what do you got? Oklahoma State next weekend. So, okay. But
FCS. Yeah.
Yeah. You get the picture. And I think that's a real logical solution for Baylor, but they've got to let it rip. Like last week, look, I understand you do have to establish a running game in the Big 12, but you've got a quarterback who, like, you just feel, as somebody who watches a lot of football, when Sawyer has the ball and there's any kind of there's something on the line, 3rd and long, whatever it is, right, sustaining a drive, I want him with the ball.
Feel good about it, don't you, man?
You just do.
Yeah.
Feel very, very good about it. And if that's who this team is going to be, that's who they're going to be. And if the defense, look, man, until they show me a sign, I'm big on trends in history. We have 3 weeks now to work off of where we have not seen, like, the defense really punctuate anything production-wise. I'm not saying they can't, but
we haven't seen it. That's fair.
And my theory is, and maybe I talked to you about this, but it goes all the way back to that first game that I ever saw at McLean Stadium in 2017 when they lost to Liberty. I think it was Phil Snow's first game as defensive coordinator. And
because
there was a lot going on.
Coach.
Yeah, there was a lot going on upstairs for the guys on defense because it was a brand new scheme, and they were just so, like stop and start and not necessarily smooth. They were clumsy defensively. And the same thing we've seen this year. And I attribute that quite possibly, maybe, to a revamped schematic deal that Dave has put together, which I'm sure Dave understands, but maybe nobody else does. And that's just a theory. I'm not in the room.
And I think there's some credence to that theory. Obviously we're not coaches or anything, but you think about it. Last year he makes himself.
Not even close.
Last year he makes himself. That I'm a little closer than you. I've been around China Spring, in the coaches meeting. But like we saw last year, he makes himself the defensive play caller, and it's still not that great. It gets better as the season goes on, but it's still not a great defense. And we talk about how much talent they were bringing back this year. Dave Aranda obviously knows that better than anybody, and he's probably thinking, I've got to pull out my stops here. Like I've got to think of something that's going to work now, and that could very well be the case. And there's a ton of pressure on this game. Pete thinks it's a make or break game for both of these teams. He'll tell you why coming up next on Locked On Baylor. But first, Mazda. That's who's bringing you this episode. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, they move culture, and keep moving the game forward. This week's moment that moved the game forward is it's got to be the Ephus play touchdown for Samford. I'm sorry. That's just funny. I'm glad it's the only points they got, but that'll be on some highlight or low light films wherever. So when you follow what moves you, the unexpected, like that touchdown, is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. Today's episode is also brought to you by our friends over at Wayfair. Yeah, Wayfair. Guys, we're getting into the fall here. You're trying to redesign a little bit. Where else would you look other than our good pals over at Wayfair? Okay, it's cooling down. Days getting shorter. You want to cozify your space this fall? Wayfair is the only place to go. They have everything you need to set the mood for the season, whether it's your comfy recliners, warm bedding, autumn decor, or even an espresso machine so you can make your favorite latte right there at home. I recently picked up some new furnishings for our new living room, a little fall style to it. Wayfair was my one and only stop. So cozify your space with Wayfair's curated collection of easy, affordable fall updates. From comfy recliners to cozy bedding and autumn decor, you'll find it all for way less at wayfair.com. That's Wayfair.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. Back here on Locked On Baylor with Pete Sousa of ESPN and Inside the 12, which comes at you every week, taking you inside this fun and great conference. So let's look around this conference, shall we? I mean, one of the biggest games of the week is this Baylor Arizona State game. And I think, Pete, even though it's really the first week of full conference play, we're going to learn a lot about some of these teams here. And Baylor and Arizona State are two of them. So why is this feel like a make or break game for both teams?
Well, because now you're into the teeth of the conference schedule and you both have one loss. Mm-hmm. And it's also from a who are we as a team? Like guys looking at each other in the eyes after the game. Like if you win a game like this, it can catapult you not only on the field, but off the field. You just kind of move different. If you lose this game, it's like, man, now we're like a middling football team. And you know, Baylor has aspirations of winning the Big 12 and going to the college football playoff. Arizona State wants to go back. And a loss here really puts a shot into those hopes. And I think Baylor playing at home at nighttime, you mentioned being favored. There's actually a little bit more pressure on the Bears, I think, because it could be their second home loss.
That's a good point. And with any great team and Baylor team in history, you got to look at they did well at home. There's no great Baylor team that was just mediocre at home. There's no great Baylor team that lost 2-3 home games. And it's interesting to look back because Baylor was basically in this situation last year. You'll remember. It was not the defending Big 12 champs that you were facing in your conference opener. You'd actually already played Utah, but that technically wasn't a conference game. It was Colorado on the road. And both those teams were coming off bad seasons, right? Colorado was 4-8, Baylor was 3-9, and you were thinking like, it's a sneaky big game. Like if you go on the road and you beat Shedeur and Travis Hunter in Colorado, like you're feeling pretty good about yourselves. And of course they didn't. And it continued to kind of snowball a little bit. They lost to BYU the next week. They lost to Iowa State a couple weeks after that. Or maybe even the next week. It was not kind of a good snowball effect. And Colorado went on to win 9 games and were right in there in the conference championship picture until the last weekend of the season, much like Baylor in a very different way. I agree with you. Like this does feel like a make or break when it comes to a confidence thing, if nothing else, right? Like we're still with the thing about a wide open conference, you know, the SEC, the Big Ten, you know who's going to be in the picture before the year. They're going to be in the picture in October and November, right? Big 12, you don't. And when we're trying to figure out who the contenders and pretenders are, you're kind of tiering this thing. I said last week, whoever won Colorado, Houston would be in that second tier. I'm sticking with that. Houston's there. Whoever loses this probably isn't in the first tier anymore. You know, I think these are two teams that you would probably consider in that first tier of 4 or 5 teams preseason, wouldn't you?
Yeah, 100%. And it also creates, if Baylor were to drop this one, a slippery slope. And if you're listening to this or watching this, okay, I'm not talking about you, but like there are Baylor fans who are on the fence every year, right? Like a lot of people in life with just a lot of different things. And a loss at home to Arizona State, the second home loss of the year, I just think hurts the whole vibe going forward. It's a winnable game. Like I said, you are favored to win. The apathy could come back quickly, right? If Baylor doesn't take care of business.
Yeah, and there's a couple of different ways to look at it, but the next two games after that, Oklahoma State and Kansas State. Oklahoma State's been awful. Kansas State's really been below expectations. Becomes one of those where it's almost a lose-lose.
Yeah.
You know, if you win both those games after this loss, and that makes you what, 4-2. Still, those Baylor fans that you're talking about are like, okay, whatever. If they beat TCU, that's a different story. Then they're back in. But if they lose those, then there are more that join your group of what you're talking about there. Here's a game that really interests me because Baylor Arizona State is probably the second biggest game in the Big 12 this weekend. The first biggest game, we're going to talk about in a minute. But here's one that really interests me, Pete. Friday night, Tulsa at Oklahoma State.
Oh, no.
Tulsa's 1-2. Okay. Could they pull something off?
Do you have a number, a spread?
I don't. I should. I'll go on FanDuel when you give me your opening thoughts here. It's tough. It's going to be tough to find. Got to go back.
Look,
I
think it's funny because I woke up this morning and I'm still kind of beside myself. People talk about, the coaching carousel.
Oklahoma State 11.5.
Okay. Good for Oklahoma State.
That's a big number for Oklahoma State, man. I'm just saying.
Yeah. You see the coaching carousel already moving, and I saw Ben Arbuckle's name being mentioned for the Oklahoma State job, which is not yet even vacant. Which
not yet.
And Oklahoma State would never, outside of something, out of the realm of football and behavior-wise, they would never fire Mike Gundy in season. I can't imagine they would, football-related reasons. But I mean, he's toast, and that is why that game and that number. You kind of look at it, you're like, man, the Tulsa doesn't look too bad.
I'll give you another weird number in the Big 12 this weekend. Kansas, West Virginia. How about that for a little tough one to pick?
So Kansas
at KU.
I say Kansas is a 6-point favorite.
They're getting on FanDuel, a proud sponsor of the Locked On Podcast Network. The Kansas Jayhawks are getting 12.5. 12.5. Like, I know. The last time you were on this show, I was the one saying, why is West Virginia favored at Ohio? And I ended up being correct in that. They shouldn't have been favored. But they showed me something last week. We don't know exactly about that Pitt team, but West Virginia should have been beating them.
12.5 point favorite?
12.5 is what I got on FanDuel.
Something happened?
I don't know, man. I don't know. Like West Virginia, I'm kind of buying West Virginia a little bit right now. And by that, I mean like 5 wins rather than 2 wins.
I guess we should be, right?
12.5, man.
Nico
has Kansas shown you anything, though, to be 12.5 over West Virginia?
So, okay.
We know Jalen Daniels and everything, but this year.
Yes, they have. First of all, there's a whole new vibe around the program. And honestly, that new stadium has a lot to do with it. Last year, they were screwed. They played at their soccer stadium and Arrowhead Stadium. And it was like they were nomads, and they played in front of 12,000 people. This year's totally different. That new reimagined booth is really cool, like a booth stadium, And so Jalen Daniels, I think we talked about this earlier, but our old buddy Jeff Grimes is out of the mix, and Jalen Daniels and Jeff Grimes were just not seeing eye to eye. Yeah. And I think that he has flourished in this new system with this new coordinator. So there's a lot to like, and I do think, although West Virginia got that victory last week, I think Pitt stinks. I think the ACC stinks, and I've always said
you're right in that, yeah.
Yeah, but I've said that since the beginning, and people try to challenge me, and now it's like not even a conversation anymore. They stink, okay? And so even Dabo earlier this week, like talking about winning the ACC, I'm like, that doesn't impress me, dude. Like,
you've got to be, as a program, you've got to be beyond that as a standard. Yes. You know what I mean?
So whatever, I get it. Clemson's awesome, and they got a great history, but I'm down on the ACC big time.
By the way,
West Virginia's win last week does nothing for me.
Okay, so that doesn't do much.
No, it's a backyard brawl, and it's really cool for Mountaineer fans, and I think that rivalry is insane. But like, really, I mean, that doesn't show me. You lost to Ohio the week before. I think you're more that team than the team who beat Pitt.
Okay. You were still shocked at that 12.5 though.
Yeah, I was.
That plus 12.5 is calling to me like the Green Goblin mask.
Honestly, Cam, I misunderstood you. Let me clean this up. I thought you meant Kansas was getting 12.5, which was blowing my mind.
Yeah, they are.
Kansas is getting
12.5 point favorites, man.
That's so West Virginia is getting 12.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
You clean up the language, dude. Me and all of Baylor Nation, we don't know what the hell's going on right now.
I'm sorry, dude. I'm sorry. They're close together.
Like you said it. I screw up all the time, and you know what sucks? You
should have double checked me on that a couple minutes ago.
No, you know what sucks? Because if I were to say Art Biles one time, you'd be like, "It's Biles."
I would never listen
in the
to
middle
that
of
guy again.
Talking.
No credibility.
You know who else does that? Mosley does that too.
Well, I'm definitely one of those people. Like if I'm watching a YouTube video or something, and they get a stat wrong, and I know it's wrong. I'm like, I'm not listening to any of the rest. Because I don't know what's going to be right. I know. Kansas 12.5 point favorites. Man.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. I think it speaks to. I really believe. I think they're onto something this season.
Okay. All right. We do have another Big 12 ACC like we had last weekend. UCF and the North Carolina Tar Heels.
I'm uniquely qualified to handicap this game because I called a UCF game earlier this year, and I'm obsessed with the whole Bill Belichick.
Yes.
I think UCF will blow them away. UCF has a lot of athletes, and I think like Scott Frost is really like a good coach there. Like
6.5 point favorites, by the
way. Yeah, I think they'll cover that. And not that this is a gambling show, but I almost hope North Carolina keeps. I want to see Belichick be like, yeah, see, I told you.
We're way over time for this segment, but I got to ask you then about this game in particular. Like you said about the Pitt West Virginia game, if UCF beats them by 21 points, does that do anything for you for UCF?
Yeah, it does. It does because I think they're an interesting team, and I think their future is really bright. I do because that school's like a great place to go to school. Scott Frost is the man back down there.
I got a cousin there.
And I think what's going to happen at big city schools like Orlando, even Cincinnati, Houston, it happened with Willie Fritz at Tulane. These, you hear me? Look, they're cities.
Pro sports towns, yeah.
These young athletes that go to school in other places, and so often now, like 75% of the time, their dreams are not realized at these certain schools. Like, let's say you go to an Alabama, right? And you're from Orlando. Well, now I'm coming back home to play in Orlando, and I'm playing at UCF. A lot of those schools, Houston, the same thing. Guys leave Houston, they go play at maybe it's Texas A&M.
Okay, I see where you're going. Yeah,
and I believe that to be the case for Orlando and UCF. So I do think they have a super bright future there. I do.
Might work even at a place like Miami, man, with the talent coming out of there.
Absolutely, yeah.
But we got to talk Tech Utah. I mean, we got to talk Tech Utah and why that could be a Big 12 championship preview. That's next on Locked On Baylor. But today's episode is brought to you by Square. Yes, Square. Your favorite neighborhood spots run on Square. There are those certain businesses that truly make the neighborhood feel like home. The local sports bar packed on game days, the coffee shop that knows your order by heart, the corner deli that's been serving you guys for decades. These are places that bring people together. When neighborhood businesses thrive, the whole neighborhood thrives. Okay. We know down at Baylor, I love Double R. I love Cups. They both have great burgers. Those places are open and thriving on you guys, the local community, all the time. Square is a proud partner of more than 4 million neighborhood businesses around the world. You can go to square.com/go/lockedoncollege to learn more. But before you do, go support your favorite neighborhood spot. You'll be happy you did. Square, see you in the neighborhood. Today's episode is also brought to you by DoorDash, which seems like a little bit of an interesting one to go side by side. It's almost the weekend. It's time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order, these players delivered when it mattered the most. Let's break it down. Again, this week, I'm going with Micah Gifford, man. Delivered in a huge way. The former wide receiver, the former special teamer, turned cornerback, had a TFL and a pick against Samford. That is no fluke. This dude is ready to play defense. Dave Aranda's talked about it in the offseason, and now it's coming to fruition. Just like Micah Gifford delivered for the Bears, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash streaks, you save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday and keep your streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. All right, Pete. Texas Tech,
Yes.
Utah.
Yeah.
Our first all-ranked match. Oh, I guess we got one with Kansas State, Iowa State. First all-ranked matchup. Does the winner of this game solidify themselves as the favorites early on to win the Big 12?
Yes, 100% yes. Texas Tech is averaging 58 points a game. Utah has an amazing defense, and Devin Dampier looks super sharp. He just has. And I think it kind of worked.
I was wrong so far.
Yep. Yeah, and I think it's sort of worked out for him playing a bunch of because, now we know about UCLA, just a bunch of lukewarm teams early on. He's built his confidence, and he's taken a step forward throwing the football, right? People expect him to run it all the time, and he's looked so sharp in the pocket. That's been great for Utah. I think the key to disrupting him is Lee Hunter and David Bailey, those two guys that Utah has that can get after the passer. Yeah. I think if they can get Devin Dampier kind of just out of a rhythm, right? And just kind of off his mark. I mean, honestly, just ring his bell early. You know what I mean? But do it legally.
Make him feel it. Let him know you're there.
Let him know you're there. Knock him. You got to knock the quarterback down early. And that is Utah football. That's Utah football. So I'm pumped for this matchup. By the way, Tim Brando's calling the Baylor game. So
yeah, we get Uncle Tim.
Yeah,
I was just going to bring up Tim Brando because he said about that Tech defense after he said that this is our great escape as a nation to watch Texas Tech and was Oregon State. He said that the Tech defense is the best he's seen in a long time. And that's, kind of a low bar for those of us who've watched Tech for a long time. But this could be a real good test for them. In the same way with Baron Morton on the offensive side of the ball. I know. And when you look at the stats, Morton was really not that far off from the guys like Sawyer Robertson and Josh Hoover passing the ball. You just didn't, you had a different feeling about Baron Morton. You're like, is he winning games for us or are we winning games with him in the passenger seat? This could be a good test against a really good defense.
Oh, well, that's a great point. And you know what's weird? I got to give Joey McGuire a lot of credit. When Morton was hurt and they were playing, God, I forget who it was, but he was questionable, and it was a BS opponent. This was like a week ago. And Joey was like, hey, I'm watching Baron Morton develop such chemistry with Mac Leftwich, his OC, that I don't want to disrupt it. I don't want him to take this week off because of a gimpy leg that he could play on and be fine. And look where we are now. I think they are steamrolling the Texas Tech offense into this game, and they're totally in lockstep with one another from the coaching booth all the way down to the field. And I think it's going to be a hell of a matchup. And it's kind of cool to see Kyle Whittingham sort of return to prominence. So I would have no issue. And Utah's offensive line, dude, they have 2 first-round picks. So, you can say what you want about the SEC and the Big Ten, and they're awesome conferences. There are, some superheroes playing in this game. Guys will be making a lot of money on Sundays, a lot of money. So it makes it a lot of fun.
I like the point about the Mac Leftwich thing because it almost makes me feel bad because Baron Morton has just been going through the wilderness the last couple of years, right? And good on him for staying and developing, but makes you wonder, man. I watched him play against Baylor in 22 and 23, and it's if he had a guy like Mac Leftwich back then, I mean, we could be talking about him as the best quarterback in the Big 12 going into this season, not just him needed to beat Utah to be thrown up there. All right, real quick before I get into trivia, which will also be real quick. Who is your pick in that Tech-Utah game?
Utah. They're at home.
It's a tough place to play.
With defense. It's a 10 o'clock local time start.
That's bizarre. That sucks. That does suck. I'm sorry. That sucks for Utah and anyone going to the game. All right, Pete. The question on yesterday's show was, who is the only Heisman Trophy winner to play at Arizona State? Some people did not get that was a trick question, kind of. But Scotty B got it, and Baylor dude got it. Can Pete Sousa get it?
Mark Gastineau?
No,
And
not even
started at Arizona State and transferred. It's got to be an Arizona State transfer. Reggie Jackson. I don't know who. I'm
Reggie
joking.
Jackson winning the Heisman.
I know.
That'd be something. It's more recent than you think. Last year's NFL Rookie of the Year, Jaden Daniels, started his career at Arizona
Herm,
State.
Goddamn Herm.
Yep, playing under Herm, man.
Yeah.
And won it, of course, with
It's
LSU.
so funny when you talk to people. Who was I talking to? Oh, it was the Danny White interview. People like talk about that Herm Edwards era in Arizona State. They are like Danny White was like, the previous administration and the Herm.
Geez,
like
man.
nobody wants to touch it, dude.
That's what I thought of like 10 years ago when Mike Singletary was like, I want to coach Baylor. Like after Bryles got fired, he was like, I want to turn this thing around. I'm like, I don't think you want to do that, Mike. I just don't think that's going to work out though. And Herm Edwards, we saw it actually play out in real life. Trivia question for today. The only time Baylor's faced Arizona State on the football field was 1990. We already asked in a trivia question a few weeks ago, who was the now Big 12 team that won the national championship, or at least claimed a national championship in 1990?
Nebraska.
That was Colorado.
Colorado.
That was Colorado. Pete literally has a T-shirt that says Colorado 1990 national champions. But now the question will be, because I'm going to keep it Heisman themed as well as Arizona State. What player who would now be playing in the Big 12 won the Heisman Trophy in 1990? Pete can't answer. You can, though. Let me know in the comment section below or tweet at us at Locked On Baylor. First one to get it gets a shout out on the next episode. 1990 Heisman Trophy winner. Thanks so much for Pete Sousa for joining. No, you can't. You cannot spoil it. You can't. Thank you to Pete. Thank you for following along and catching up with all the Big 12 action this weekend. We'll have Pete on next week, and we will see you on the next one. Thank you for making it your first listen today and every day. That'll be the post-game show after Baylor, Arizona State on Locked On Baylor.